Coming up on the Delaware Way, we'll take a look back at the midterm elections that turned this state bluer, and Delaware is outsourcing its prisoners. This is the Delaware Way. Welcome to the Delaware Way. I'm Larry Menti. We just went through the midterm elections. Let's take a moment to look back to figure out what happened in Delaware. Matt Albright is now the engagement editor at the News Journal, which is really being the op-ed editor. When we first had you on, you were covering education, then you were the political reporter, so you're really moving up in the world.
Well, thanks, Larry. I'm glad to be back.
I'm glad you're here because I think there's nobody better to talk about what just happened. And I think the overriding theme would be what? That the blue state became bluer?
Yeah, I mean, we are as solid a blue state as they come now. Democrats control all the statewide, will control once they take office, all the statewide elected positions for the first time in decades. There won't be a single Republican in the federal or statewide offices. Democrats hold more than a supermajority in the House, and they're close to a supermajority in the Senate. They're basically one Senate seat away from a supermajority. To give you a sense of what that means, a lot of people remember 2017, there was this giant battle over the budget where Democrats wanted to raise income taxes and add new income tax brackets to charge higher tax rates to the wealthy, and they couldn't get it done because they didn't have that supermajority you need to raise taxes. Well, now they can lose a vote in the House, one vote in the House, and still pass it through the House, and they only need to flip one Republican in the Senate, and they can pass exactly the income tax package that they wanted in 2015. That gives you a sense of why that matters, that they have that majority.
Oh yeah, elections have consequences. So you see, at least over the next couple of years, Democrats pushing through things that they couldn't get through before.
Right, and so the question now, in some ways, the tension to watch now isn't between Republicans and Democrats. It's what happens within the Democratic caucuses, right? A lot of rank and file Democrats have been pretty frustrated with how Governor John Carney and some of the leadership in the legislature has not really been terrifically ambitious with what they've pushed. They only got a $1 minimum wage increase. They couldn't get an assault weapons ban done. They haven't been able to add new income tax brackets. And so now there's going to be a lot of pressure. There's a whole lot of new people in the General Assembly. More than the turnover is more than there's been in a long time. And a lot of those people ran on pretty ambitious progressive platforms. And so are they going to push Democratic leaders to be a little more ambitious and pursue more of a blue state agenda, to start acting more of like a blue state than they have been?
So I guess now we find out how progressive the Democratic leadership is.
Right. And so you could see some hints that leadership is starting to acknowledge this. For example, in the Senate Democratic caucus, they elected Brian Townsend to be the whip. And he is known as, he's one of the guys he's probably passed the most progressive legislation of any lawmaker. He's beloved by a lot of the younger progressive folks in the party. And the fact that he was named to leadership is a hint that they sort of understand that this is where things are going. Now we'll see how far they're willing to go. Like, are some of the progressives going to push for a $15 minimum wage all of a sudden? There are a lot of folks in the business community, which traditionally is very strong with Delaware, who are sort of nervous about all these new people coming in, and they're going to move too fast and, push for higher taxes and all this kind of stuff. So it'd be interesting to see what the Democrats try to do in this first General Assembly with their majority.
Of all the races that you can look at, I think the one for state treasurer was the one that was the most shocking, especially for Republicans. It was a wake-up call. We've had both Ken Simpler and Colleen Davis sitting in the seat that you're sitting in now, and Ken Simpler did a good job. He's an impressive guy. He has a financial background. And yet he lost to Colleen Davis, a newcomer who doesn't seem to have the financial background.
Right. I think a lot of folks see that race as evidence that Republicans aren't going to be competitive at the statewide level anytime soon. I mean, Ken Simpler had a fantastic reputation. A lot of Democrats will quietly tell you, yeah, he was a pretty good treasurer. And Colleen Davis was a first-time candidate. Not to knock her, say she isn't intelligent or that she might not do a good job, we'll see, but she was a first-time candidate. And Ken Simpler was the rising star in the Republican Party. Everybody thought he was the guy that if Republicans were going to make a run at governor, he was going to be the one to do it. And I think it's also important, a lot of people have criticized the Republican Party for running as Trumpish candidates, being super conservative on social issues like gay rights, transgender issues, all these kind of things. Ken Simpler wasn't that. Ken Simpler very much ran as a Mike Castle Republican, which is, I'm not going to talk about social issues. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to keep your taxes relatively low and to make your government run efficiently. And that is how Republicans have traditionally won. And he lost. And he didn't just lose narrowly. He lost by a pretty convincing margin. It wasn't like a blowout, but it was a pretty convincing margin. And so the question is there any kind of formula for a Republican to win a statewide office? And I don't see one.
I will say he was the closest of all the Republicans in running
Right.
for statewide office, but
Right.
there's a reason for that. And as you mentioned, most of the other elections, the ones for Senate, one for Congress, they were blowouts. I don't think anybody got under 60% for the Democrats.
Yeah, I think Tom Carper just barely got under, but not by much. and so one of the things I think it's important to talk about is that Delaware is very much becoming entrenched geographically. Newcastle County, Republicans in Newcastle County are becoming an endangered species, and a lot of people are talking about that. Not many people are talking about just how hardcore Republican Sussex is now. Outside of the beaches, which are sort of their own thing, I don't think a single Democrat broke 40%. And they had some candidates that Democrats were really excited about down there, and they just went nowhere. And so it's, Delaware has sort of always had this like return day notion of, we don't really care about party, and, a Democrat can run in Sussex and a Republican can run in Newcastle County. Well, that's becoming less and less true.
So what is the future for the Republican Party is it all in Sussex County? They just have to hold on to that stronghold?
I mean, so the question is how much of this election was a response to national politics? How much of Ken Simpler losing and some of these upstate Republicans losing was just Democrats and independents are furious at President Trump and at congressional Republicans and all the things they're doing? I mean, you got to figure in 2020, if that is the reason why so many of these people lost, then you got to figure that's not going to change in 2020. The question is, after 2020, is this sort of a unique reaction to Donald Trump, or has Delaware really just become this blue? I don't think we know yet, because I do think, if you talk to many voters at all, a lot of the people in Newcastle County that I talked to at the polling places, I even heard people say, I like Ken Simpler, can't vote for Republican, period. I'm voting straight ticket all the way down because I'm furious at Trump and I want to repudiate him.
Speaking of 2020, is Joe Biden running?
I don't think Joe Biden knows if Joe Biden's running yet.
It changes the race significantly if he jumps in.
I think it does. I think there's a lot of people who will not run if Joe runs. I think his age is the primary factor. This is not a unique take to make, but I think he's old.
So him going around the country for the midterm seemed like a test run. It seemed like he was deciding whether he had the stamina for it, whether he had the stomach for it.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the biggest things that's probably, and I don't have any kind of special access to Joe Biden, but I think one of the things that's got to be weighing on him is he's very close with his family. And President Trump has shown that he's willing to attack anything and everything, and he doesn't have a whole lot of limits on who he's going to attack. So I think Joe Biden is thinking about whether he and his family are up for the brutal campaign that they're going to have to run if he runs against Donald Trump.
But Biden can run a brutal campaign, too. If there's anybody that can be a fighter, it's Joe Biden.
I don't think he's afraid of Trump coming after him. And I don't think he will hesitate to go after Trump. But from what I hear...
He's already said he wants to take him in the back and beat him up.
Exactly. Exactly.
He said that on there. Hey, Matt, thanks a lot for coming in. Please come back some more.
Yeah,
we haven't seen you for a while.
Very glad to be here. Thanks a lot.
Matt Albright is the engagement editor, which is really the op-ed editor, at the News Journal. When we come back, why some inmates are being transferred from Delaware to Pennsylvania. It's a fascinating story, and we'll tell it to you when we talk to the Correctional Officers Union head when the Delaware Way continues.